Tonight, I want to speak about the wow of a mitzvah. But not just the wow of a mitzvah. The moment you have a chance to do something, and if you can catch it, not only will it change your life, not only will it change a person also, but it can change the world and your direction forever. But before I get to that, I just want to go and say that yes, Friday morning at about 10 o'clock across East Coast, West Coast, that's when we celebrate when God came down Mount Sinai 33, 32 years ago, exactly. And the number one rule of all mitzvah that God said is love of a fellow. The importance of love of a fellow means that when one Jew, the letter Yud, and another Jew, the letter Yud, comes together, when two Jews come together and they make a bond, kaboom, that spells God's name. Two Yuds spell God's name. And tonight I'm going to bring you two guests from two different walks of life. They're going to blow your mind with this story, how just one mitzvah is changing their life forever. But first, who am I? I'm the big guy. They say, the star, Rabbi Mentz. No. Let me tell you something. In about 70 years ago, 75 years ago, there was a girl who didn't have a mother. And what happened was that she was almost adopted to go to a church and to go to a Christian lifestyle. In fact, she was this close to becoming. Her father couldn't take care of her. But the people who wanted to adopt did not want a girl with fat glasses. And my mother, this girl said, forget it. If you don't want me, the father said, you don't want me, it's over. What happened was that this girl, every Sunday, being that she didn't have a mother, went to church. Every single Sunday. Until one day she went on Easter Sunday and she saw the Christ of Passion, the movie, in the 1940s. And she went home screaming, I hate that I'm a Jew. Because we killed the greatest man on earth that could have brought peace to the world. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because when she was 16 years old, on one given day, some Chabadnik walked over to her and said, excuse me, are you Jewish? And she said, yes. But I don't like being Jewish. I don't want anything to be being Jewish. The Chabadnik stayed with this person and gave her a couple of books. She loved what she heard about Judaism. She went to Brooklyn, New York, and she found a friend, the Rebbe. And that girl is my mother. That's right. One moment in time, I could have been a Sunday morning preacher giving Joel Olson a run for his money on Sunday morning. But what happened was, one moment, somebody walked over and said, excuse me, are you Jewish? And she said, yes, but I don't care. Stayed with a smile. And you have no idea what it means to love a fellow as yourself. And I have so much more to talk about the power of that mitzvah. But first, I want to bring you in some of the people that I brought. So first, I would like to bring in Christina. Christina Pascucci. Now, that sounds like a real Jewish name for you, huh? Christina Pascucci and I have been friends already for 3 years. Christina, are you on? Can we get her mic up?
Can you hear me?
There you go. I hear you. Very good.
Hi, Rabbi.
Christina, you and I, we go back, we schmooze. Best of friends. How did I meet you? Real quick. How did I meet you? Through who?
It's so crazy how things unfold. So I'm a news reporter, and I was covering a story one day that was like any other. And I went into this store that sells different gifts. And a woman named Tara owns the store, who I adore. And we just started talking about Judaism. And I told her that when I was in my early 20s, I found out that I'm Jewish. And I had no idea prior to that. And then she told me that I got to meet the rabbi. and we've been dear friends ever since.
But before you were 20 years old, out of nowhere, you never had an inkling that you were Jewish, did you?
No, with a name like Christina Pascucci, no. You know, I really didn't. I was raised going to church. My parents are Christians, and they never really talked about it. In fact, my mom, she's from Germany, from Munich, Germany, and I think the culture for her, she's been through a lot, and it's kind of a culture of let's not talk about things that are unpleasant.
Right. Now, I've already spoken to your mom, and your mom is already, and you're going to be helping her doing the research to find out more and more and more about her roots. Let me ask you a question. Since you started finding out about your Jewishness, what are some of the things that you weren't able to do, or if you weren't able to do, how did you go about doing it? Give us some examples.
Say that again. You mean like in my daily life?
No. Do you do anything in your daily life? Are any holidays that you celebrate?
Oh, yes. I mean, well, should I start from the beginning? Should I
Go
give
for
some
it.
Background first? Okay,
I'm throwing the softball to you.
Yeah, okay. And stop me anytime, you know, if I'm talking too much or blabbing too much. But basically, when I was in my early 20s, I grew up in Calabasas. I had a lot of Jewish friends. I would spend Shabbat with them occasionally. And I started dating a Jewish guy who I loved very much. We ended up being together for like 4 years or something like that. And I don't know how it came up. It was like, how did this never come up? But my mom told me, Christina, you know, your grandmother was Jewish in Munich, Germany during the Holocaust, and basically denounced Judaism or separated herself from it as much as possible to survive. Her maiden name is Meyer. All her friends were Jewish. You know, she just never talked about it. And after my mom was born, right after the war, she was raised the first couple of years of her life by Catholic nuns. I think, you know, sadly, my grandmother's not alive, so I can't ask her these questions, but it was basically like an effort to completely separate herself from something that she thought would get her killed. And so it started me down this path. I ended up going on birthright with my then Jewish boyfriend, and it became something that was very important to me. The culture, the sense of family, you know, Pesach, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but these are things now that I'll celebrate with friends. You've been so kind and invited. You come with you know, you come with everything, menorah, anything I need to celebrate the different holidays, and you've been so instrumental. I really appreciate how supportive you've been in this journey for me.
Which is kind of funny, because all I have to do is see the morning news. I know where you are, and I can track you down to make sure you get your matzah.
And you do. You bring me my matzah. You've done it on multiple occasions. We've met off the side of the freeway. You bring me the matzah. It's like
the cameraman wants to know, who is this guy constantly showing up on set?
And then you show up, and then you inspire my cameraman to want to know more about Judaism. So you're just spreading the word everywhere.
Now, I want everybody to know what's great about Christina is that she's not just an Emmy winner of, you know, for the news, but she is a pilot. She's on many different government panels for many different things. But there's one thing that she has a love in her life, and that's traveling. Now, when she travels, she's been to Antarctica, and of course she takes the traveling prayer with the Rebbe's picture on it, because hello, how else is she going to go wherever she is? But yes. I asked you to do something which you may have done it, but I didn't get the video of it, and I'm happy you didn't, because you told me it was you were up there on a Saturday. Where did I say to you, say the prayer Shema Yisrael? I asked you to say Shema, because I said a Jew never stepped foot there. I've never ever said Shema. Where were you?
I was summiting Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa.
How many feet
up? And
I
brought the card. I brought the card with me, the prayer card that you gave me. I bring it everywhere. You
see that, everybody? One mitzvah. No Jew has to go up there anymore. Shema Yisrael was dead. The power. You see, this is what Christina brings to the world. But Christina also brings another thing to the work, which is very, very nice. Many times people, when they're in the media or when they're public, they don't talk too much about their religion or whatever it is. And one of the things that I've noticed from time to time is that if you're doing a mitzvah or you're doing something, you'll post it on your Instagram, you'll post it on your story, and you'll go and say to everybody that, I found out that I'm Jewish, I found out I'm proud of my heritage, etc. And just give me one story, give everybody one story about one of the things that makes you proud about being Jewish. I know that's a curveball because you weren't ready for that. One thing.
No, it's okay. I mean, it set me down this path, and I can't wait to learn more. It almost makes me emotional that I didn't even know for so many years of my life, and I think the sense of family, the sense of caring and love and tradition, and it's just such a beautiful culture and way of being and way of treating people. And I wish my grandmother was, it almost makes me want to cry. I wish she was here because there's so much I want to ask her and know. And I can't imagine how tough it must have been for her.
That's beautiful. Now, there's one beautiful thing. So we noticed one discussion, talking to Tara about, and you went there because you're talking about holiday gifts, and Hanukkah was coming up. So the concept of being Jewish came up. One discussion, and she said, go to my rabbi and look how your entire life is changing. And I got one more thing, because I know you have to go. You're on a tight schedule. You told me that you have to go. You're about to close on a house, etc. Which, if she does, another mitzvah, a mezuzah on the home. But I just want to say, if it wasn't for that one meeting, where would you be today with all of the things? Would the Rebbe's picture been in Antarctica? Would Shema been said on whatever the name of that mountain is?
Kilimanjaro. It's had me reevaluate my entire relationship with God. It's had me reevaluate who we really are as people and what we truly know about ourselves. And it's just like, it's ludicrous to think you're with yourself your entire life. You think you know who you are. And then there's this entirely other universe that I'm just tapping into. And, it's made me closer with friends who have Shabbat, and I want to go spend time with them. I don't know, it's opened up so many different doors and made my life so much more rich. And
beautiful,
yeah.
One last thing, and it is that you not only is it that you're doing all these things. I want everybody to know you're just not a pretty face on TV. What awards have you won because of the work you do to make this world a better place? Has the city of Los Angeles given you? I mean, people have to look.
Aww.
There's a girl. No.
Rabbi, you're so kind to ask.
I'm proud, and I would go to every one of the awards, every single one of them. Tell everybody how special and what you do for the city of Los Angeles.
You're so good at making people feel good and empowering them. Thank you so much. Well, I was recognized by the city for my work with inner city youth, and I have a little sister and big brothers, big sisters. If you haven't heard of the organization, I highly recommend you check it out. Basically, you're paired with a mentor, or you are the mentor, and you're paired with a young kid who's considered at-risk youth. My little sister lives in South Central LA, and we've been together for 10 years, and she's about to be the first person in her family to graduate high school, not even college, but high school. And she is setting the bar for her sisters who will come after her. And so I was honored, and I was honored as California's Big Sister of the Year for that as well.
Beautiful. Christina, I have to contact you tomorrow because I have a booklet to give you for a holiday that is starting on Thursday night, Friday, the holiday of Shavuos, when God gave the 10 Commandments. I know you have, if you can stick around, because I got another great guest to show to everybody who's also changing the whole world. And Christina, you're the best. Thank you. And now I'd like to
Rabbi.
Thank you. I'm happy to bring on none other than my dear friend. When I say dear friend, another one of my dear, I call them all my dear friends, but seriously, Aton Ben-Horin. Eitan is literally, when 99% of the things that your children are listening to on the radio, we're talking about the good stuff. Even Gad Baz has a relationship with him. But the stuff that your kids are listening in the real world is usually found by this man, signed by this man, brought on by Warner Brothers, etc., etc. He is the VP of global music. This man shapes the world of what everybody is going to be listening to tomorrow. Eitan, welcome to this wonderful evening. One second. We don't hear you. Could you unmute Eitan?
What's
Eitan,
up,
you
Rabbi?
there?
I'm here.
There you go. So Eitan, so first of all, you have deep roots in Florida. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, before we even go about, everyone said, Florida? I thought he's a California dude. Well, tell everybody a little bit where you're from.
So yeah, I was born in Miami, and my father's Moroccan, my mom's Egyptian. They got exiled when they were young for being Jewish and had to leave and with everything behind and moved to Israel. And they spent their life in Israel and moved to Miami just before I was born. I pretty much lived in Miami, grew up traditional. So I would do like Shabbat dinner with my friends, and then I would go out afterwards. And so we had the house was kosher, but we would kind of just, it was kind of more traditional. But it was later in life, which we'll talk about, that it really, it's different when you're born Jewish versus you actually do it from the heart and with kavanah is a lot different. So I was born Jewish, but I wasn't like, and I had amazing roots, and I had my bar mitzvah in Israel, but it was later in life that I became even more connected with it.
Well, during your teenage years, till you were about 20 years old, etc., or maybe a little bit earlier, I mean, was it like you were putting on tefillin every day? Was it like that you were praying every day? I mean, or you were one of those typical American kids, I had my bar mitzvah, I had the traditional home, but what was going on in your life?
So I was, okay, so I was the oldest of four kids. I went to Hillel in North Miami Beach, and I was putting on tefillin every morning because they were like, put on tefillin, wear your yarmulke, tuck in your shirt. It wasn't because like I was like, let me put on tefillin. So I was so through that I learned how to put on tefillin. But as soon as I graduated high school, I was probably the furthest away from Judaism that I was. And then when I moved to college in Orlando, Florida, I just, I grew even further. I was at the time, I was eating shrimp and like just didn't try shrimp and lobster and like mixing milk, dairy, and meat. Like I just cared less about it. Growing up, interestingly enough, I don't know how deep you want to go into my roots too, but I think almost every person in my close family, all my siblings, and all have their own stories with Judaism, and eventually everybody separately on their own became religious. So I would say
before we get to the more religious, let me reframe where we're at. So here we are on college campus, and you're in a rock band, and you're playing on Shabbos, you're playing on holidays, you're having a blast, you're doing what kids do on college, and you were starting to get your name known. Now we're going to get to the mitzvah part in a moment, because that's an amazing story. But because you started getting into all of this, how does a kid from North Miami going to Orlando end up as VP? Just give a quick thing is, how did you go from here that now you're scouting all the music that today they're being played everywhere in everybody's phones, etc.?
So I first, in my first taste in music was I was in like the school choir. So I got in the high school choir, and I got a head start in harmonies early on. I still wasn't obsessed with music, like on the level of like, let me do this for a living. I took 2 years of piano after that, which gave me basics. And then my life was actually ice hockey at the time. I was obsessed with ice hockey. And I remember
What was a kid from Miami doing with ice hockey?
Yeah, but bless my father. My father would drive me at 4:30, I don't know, 5 in the morning every Sunday to the ice hockey rink, because on every Sunday, so to play ice hockey. It was crazy. Which I'll never forget and I always appreciate. And my parents were extremely supportive of anything I was passionate about. So I, at the time I was leaving hockey practice and I heard like Green Day, and I was like, what's this? I'd never heard anything like it. At the time it was a new sound. Became obsessed with rock music. My father had a guitar that was kind of collecting dust at the house. I picked it up and like learned how to play every song on the Green Day album until my fingers were almost bleeding. And then me and my friends from the hockey team started a band. And that journey was like, I'm gonna give you the quickest version because I could almost write a book about every part of my journey. But that journey lasted like 6 years. We toured everywhere, like Warped Tour, Simple Plan, Jimmy Eat World, Nine Inch Nails, all types of big touring. And then when I got to college, I started immediately. Also, I got exposed to dance music. So I became really passionate about that. I started DJing, producing, songwriting for other artists. And then a bunch of stuff happened, which we'll get to. But I think I don't know if I should get to the mitzvah part yet, but basically from 20...
No, don't get to the mitzvah part. What I want to hear is, where were you when somebody came over to you and said, I want you to work for Warner. I want you to become part of a label. Let's run straight to that. How did that happen?
So I ended up at one point, so I was songwriting, producing for people. I ended up taking a big risk and buying what became the most popular recording studio in Orlando, Florida, where I was for college at the time. So out of the studio, I started developing talent, and I ended up signing and developing this artist from scratch. So I wrote, produced a song, signed it to a management deal, and it exploded online. There was a big bidding war. I signed the deal with Universal, got a check, moved to LA, and hired someone to run my studio at the time. And when I got to LA, I spent about 8 months on that project. And eventually they had a restructuring, and the kind of project took a stop because Universal restructured at the time. And ironically, the guy that bought the very, very first song from me in 2006, got promoted to global president of Warner Music Group. And then he brought me in under him, and thank God that the rest is history. But I think to kind of explain what I do right now, Warner Music Group is one of the three majors. We have Warner, Universal, and Sony. And under Warner Music Group, we have Atlantic Records, Warner Brothers Records, a lot of like major companies. So I right now have a team of 5 people under me, and we work across all of our companies. And
So 1 minute, how many artists are we talking about here? That, in other words, that your tentacles have to reach down to. I mean, this is fascinating because I want everybody to recognize how high in the industry you are, and then we're going to talk about how proud you are of your Yiddishkeit. That is totally amazing. How many people are signed with Sony and Warner's and all those labels put together that you're the VP of?
I should know the answer to that. I don't know. There's a lot of that many artists, signed. We have a lot of sub labels, but
is there a name? Everybody would love to give it. Give 2, 3.
I mean, we have Cardi B. We have Cardi B. We have Bruno Mars. We have Ed Sheeran. We have David Guetta. We have a lot of amazing.
I'm looking at the faces here, and 90% of the faces have a blank look. They're still looking for Tom Jones. I mean, they're still trying to. I'm teasing.
Yeah, and to kind of explain what I do at the company, because a lot of different departments at a record label. My department is probably it's the funnest job because it's the music department at the record label. So my job is to find talent to sign to the company, to find unsigned artists to sign to a deal, and then also most of my time is actually spent with all of our existing artists. I'm in the studio with them when they make their albums, and I guide them through the recording process. I find them hit songs to record. Basically, my job is to make hits.
And which you do, which obviously you do, because they're renegotiating with you right now because he obviously wants you, and God willing, good things will come. Next question. You come to me for Shabbos. You come to my services. You love your Judaism. How did you get from, I didn't care? So we're going to talk about your mitzvah. There was one moment. What was going on that night? Where were you? The power of that one mitzvah. Take us to that moment.
So my family, we would go to Israel, I would say every other year growing up. So I had gone to Israel a lot. My brother at the time was studying to become a rabbi. I think it's called Ner Yisrael. I don't know if I'm not sure, the one right by the Kotel. But I sat in on a lesson, on a Bible code lesson. It kind of got some inspiration. And then in the next 24 hours, I saw a couple of things that just really got me start thinking about Judaism. And that night I was at my uncle's house, Yossi Mizrahi. Shout out to Yossi Mizrahi. He's an incredible, very spiritual person. And so I remember I was producing with my headphones on my laptop. All night I was working on this song until about 4 a.m. Yossi randomly wakes up and comes out. I have no idea why he woke up at 4 a.m, but he did. And we just start talking about Judaism till 7 a.m. And that night he tells me that night, he's like, if you take on one mitzvah, no matter what, and you never miss it, no matter what, you take on one mitzvah and you do not miss a thing ever, it's it holds a lot of weight. So I didn't think much of it, and he kind of chose, he suggested Netilat Yadayim, which is washing before bread. And, to kind of give you, to give you a idea, from 15 to 26 years old, I've been doing music. And I was 26 at the time. And it was always almost, my band almost made it. This almost happened. It was a bunch of almost success stories. And I had very little stability. I was up and down. I was kind of in a stressed out place because I was like, man, I want to start thinking about family. And I didn't really have stability. I would make great money one month. The next month I was broke. So anyway, so that night I made a promise to him, to God. I was like, I'm taking on Netilat Yadayim before bread. And I didn't think much of it. And now call it a coincidence, call it whatever you want. So from 15 to 26, I made barely any money off of music. And when I got to Israel on that trip, it was a 2-week trip. I had no connections in music in Israel. And so by the end of that trip, I wrote 2 songs for one of the biggest artists in the country at the time, Shiri Maimon, by the end of that trip. I come back to Orlando, sell my first song to Atlantic Records that same month. My band while all this is happening, my band's on tour. And I remember we would stop at McDonald's and I would stick my hand out of the window with a water bottle and wash before the bread. And, to this day, fast forward, basically after the song was sold, this crazy series of events happens. I ended up buying the studio, and it was one thing after the next. And you could call it a coincidence, call it whatever you want, but from 15 to 26, I made no money off of music. I took on that mitzvah, and now Baruch Hashem, when you look at 10 years later, you can actually go back and see that there's an extremely powerful story. And now I'm the global vice president of A&R for Warner Music Group, and it wasn't really a powerful story to tell, until now, because now you go back and you think about everything.
Now you go back and you see. Let me take you to the next. Now let's take it to the next thing, because the thing is the power of the mitzvah, and which we see that one mitzvah not only brought your spirituality and your connection to God and Judaism, but obviously God had planned for you. But until you had your spirituality, God said, I'm not putting you there until you did your mitzvah. One of the things that I love about you is that no matter who you bump into, You're always coming over to me, or you're coming over and saying, I got this guy, I got to bring him to service. I got this guy, I got to bring him over to dinner. You've invited me to your home to have powwow with people. What kind of people come to these kind of dinners? And it's the first time in their lives that they're actually talking to a rabbi and hearing something about Judaism. You just give, like, who are these people that you bring?
I mean, I other executives, other artists, people that are not connected. I have a separate passion now of connecting. I think people, they come to LA for music or for entertainment, and a lot of them get lost and they don't have a connection, or they had it back home and they don't have it here. So I think, and I think a lot of them, if they got the right information or the right messaging, or, you know, it's also about having a good messenger, you know, like you, Rabbi, to pass on the message and get people inspired. But I think a lot of them, you know, one of my separate passions has become like just exposing people to the right information. I do believe that if people are exposed to Judaism in the right way, that they should become passionate. They will become passionate about it. And, you know, the interesting thing about that mitzvah too is I didn't realize at the time, but by the way, I have not missed one till this day, not one washing before bread. And the interesting thing at the time is that what I didn't realize is that I was actually taking on two mitzvahs. Because what do you say after Nitlat Yadayim? You say motzi. So it was actually two mitzvahs. And then that second mitzvah, I realized as I was doing it, it makes logical sense, because I'm just saying thank you for what I'm eating. It's the easiest thing to do. It takes no effort. It's one sentence. So then I started saying brachas on everything else I eat. It was very, very simple, you know. So it makes logical sense, and it's just, why wouldn't I say thank you for what I'm eating? So that was like the first, that spark led to like a bunch of other mitzvahs. And then another story I'll tell you is the first time I was at this, there's a organization called Soho Supper Club. And I told the story for the first time at a dinner over there. And after the dinner, I got a bunch of emails of people sending me stuff. Oh, I was inspired by your story. I'm taking on Birkat Hamazon. I'm inspired by your story. I'm taking on this. So that same day, I got a text from one of my artists and his father that they're like, we should just start doing tefillin randomly. They weren't at the dinner. So that just kind of, so then I started tefillin, but not in the same way as Nitlat Yadayim, but that definitely like led to like a ton of other mitzvahs and a ton of other people doing mitzvahs.
I'm going to add a few things because time is running. I want to go and, like, I know this. You brought me one of those guys to my house. You just told me not too long ago, you called him up and said, are you putting on your tefillin? In other words, you keep up with these people just because you signed them, just because everything. We were talking about the dude that you brought here, and then you called him up and you reminded him, you got to keep on putting on the tefillin. There's one more thing I want everybody to know. Your love for Israel. You have single-handedly, you see people, you hear about it. Not too long ago, A-Rod and his wife, J-Lo, is Israel. The Palestinians go out of their way to go and bash her Instagram and her Twitter and everything to make sure that she'll never go to Israel again. Do you know how many times artists plan to go to Israel? The Palestinians and the Arabs, they come down on them, they pull out. You need somebody who's got power in the music industry to talk to them. But he's created an army. Real quick, in about 30 seconds, tell me about the army that you created.
Well, it's a group effort. If anyone wants information about that, I'll talk. There's a separate thing that I have related to Israel. But there's, I think the biggest thing is a lot of my artists were getting attacked, and I realized that there's a problem. Like, they're getting misinformation. There's bots that are like fake accounts, and I've had firsthand experience of my artists canceling their shows over there. There's an organization called Creative Community for Peace that specializes, and I've kind of been really active with them, and they specialize in kind of like countering the cultural boycott of Israel. So if anybody wants information about that, go to creativecommunityforpeace.com.
Which Rabbi Pinny, I see him writing it down, making sure that everybody has it. Last but not least, I want to just finish with this thing. Your pride I mean, I speak to you. It's not once a week, twice a week. I mean, we're like this. We're tight. Your greatest joy is one day to get married, have Jewish children, and bring them up with a yummy of Judaism in a way better than what you have. And that is one of the wonderful things that I see from you and I hear from you. As great as you are, and as big as you are in the music, you recognize the most important thing that I must do is bring up a Jewish family. And that, my dear friends, washing Negovasa, one mitzvah, he now brings in so many people and does so much for the Jewish world. You can't beat that. And by the way, when he comes to shul, you think he sits in the front row? I sit in the back. I don't want to be. I love you, Eitan. You're the real deal. And I'm so happy I was able to introduce you to all of these people all around the entire United States that are watching. Thank you so much for coming, Eitan.
Love you too, Rabbi. Thank you for having me. And you're one of a kind as well. And thank you for always inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. To everybody else that's out there, let me just go and talk about the greatness of a mitzvah, because this is where it all comes together. You know, when we all heard from all the rabbis before me, and you can hear it after me, that the most important thing about a mitzvah is that we reconnect God in this world. The whole concept of the holiday Shavuos is how we recreate God in this world. And I got to tell you something. Your whole life, if you live 80 years, 90 years, the Baal Shem Tov says that you were put onto this world to do at least one mitzvah for somebody. Now, you don't know who it is. Do you realize that right after Corona, when we're free from this, we're going to get out there and going to meet a lot of people? Whether you're 75 years old listening or 10 years old listening, every person we meet, you got to connect them. One mitzvah. Christina was talking a regular spot. The store owner decided to smell her out if she's Jewish. And I asked her, why would you think that? Her name is Christina Pascucci. Why would you even think that? He says, because you taught me, never underestimate a person's name. They could be Jewish. And that's where she is today. That she's so proud, she's calling to put up a mezuzah. She comes to services whenever she can. And whenever the news needs a commentary, I go down to the station. One mitzvah, that somebody connected one person to another. That's how you change the world. You're going to be in Ralph's, or you don't have Ralph's, you're going to be in Winn-Dixie. You're going to be wherever you are. And then all of a sudden there's going to be somebody standing in front of you, behind you. Don't just stand there. Turn around and say, how you doing? And then all of a sudden you go and you say, oh, you're Jewish? Where do you go? I got burnt out. Burnt out? I got Rabbi Pinny. Are you kidding me? You can change their life. One mitzvah. And that's what Shavuos is all about. God took you and me out of Egypt and empowered you and me to change the world. And the way to change the world, it starts with one person at a time. I look at Christina and I look at Eitan. And then Rabbi Pinny's shul and at every Chabad house, we all have these people. Mind-boggling. So you say, with all of these people that you changed, there's a lot more to do. So the Rebbe taught us that each and every one of us are also a shliach. Not just Rabbi Pinny, not just Rabbi Mentz, but you're going to meet people that Rabbi Pinny would never meet, that I would never meet. And you got to recognize God blessed you and chose you. Do that one mitzvah. The Baal Shem Tov says, you don't know who that person is. Get them connected and watch the world change. I want to thank Rabbi Pinny. I want to thank everybody for putting this entire thing together. If anybody has any questions, I don't know if that's what you usually do, if you want to open it up, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about anything. Rabbi Pinny, I don't know how you usually wrap this evening up, but the power of the mitzvah, I wanted to show you. Two people, out of the blue, how the world has changed for the better because of them.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Mentz. Allow me, please, to, first of all, thank also Christina and Eitan for your wonderful story, sharing it with all of us and inspiring us. Allow me to also, if I may, Rabbi Mentz, is just to echo some of the things that you just said, that we see in this quarantine. The one person eating a bat, or if it came from a lab, the consequences of one negative action, how it's literally shut down the world. So could you imagine the power of one good deed? Could you imagine the power of one mitzvah? How it can affect the entire world? And I think that's your message in the power of a mitzvah. One good deed. We're dealing here now with, as you said, right before Shavuos, and there's no date. Just again, to echo what you said, Rabbi Mentz, there's no date of the holiday of Shavuos. It's the only holiday in the Torah that God doesn't give a date. Because every moment, every location, God gave the Torah in the desert, and he didn't give a specific time to tell us that every moment of every day, any place we might be, we have to keep our eyes open. Because I think Christina's story and Eitan's story is our story too. There's always going to be a moment in time that's going to be a very pivotal time where it can change our life. Allow me just to share one story before we close, and Rabbi Mentz, I'll give you a moment to close. But I'll tell you that we were once on Etihad Airlines, which is an Arabic airline, on our way to South Africa. We were left from New York and we stopped in Abu Dhabi. And it was my whole family. We were taking my parents on a trip. And all of a sudden at the end, when we were unpacking, we let everybody else go because where were we running? We arrived there like at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And my brother, Shmuley, looks under his seat and he sees a wallet full of money. And he thought we thought we were the only Jews on the plane. And he opens it up. He opens up the wallet and the ID and he sees it was Daniel Weiss, probably the only other Jew on the plane. So we get out into Abu Dhabi in the airport and he starts, Daniel Weiss, Daniel Weiss. And this guy looks, who's screaming my name in Abu Dhabi? And he sees it's us. And we hand him the wallet. He didn't even know he lost it. The next day we go from Abu Dhabi to South Africa on our second leg of the journey. And I walk up to Daniel Weiss. He was a kid in his 30s. And I say, Daniel, I handed you the wallet. He says, yeah, thank you so much. I said, it's time to pay up. He looks at me, what? I said, let's put on tefillin right here and now. And we put on tefillin, and he tells me it was the first time he ever did it. He wasn't even bar mitzvah. That was Daniel Weiss's pivotal moment where the power of a mitzvah literally woke him up to Judaism. So each and every one of us, before we receive the Torah on Friday, as I mentioned, it's not a story that happened thousands of years ago, 3,332 years ago. It's a story happening to us today. We've been in our homes. We've been quarantined for 2.5 months. Let us hopefully take this time that we've had to reflect and see what have we learned from this time at home? What perspectives, what values, and hopefully like Eitan and Christina, we can make a commitment to take on a new mitzvah and change our lives for the better. And as we know that we're going to grow, we're going to move on from this quarantine, and God willing, each and every one of us in our own personal lives will become better people, more committed to godliness and to Judaism. But as Rabbi Mentz encouraged here as well, hopefully we can look how not only for ourselves, but how we can inspire other people to make a big difference in their lives, to have them grow and become more in touch with their Judaism. Rabbi Mentz, give me 1 second. I think I have to unmute you, but because there was some echo, but go ahead.
I got it. I just want to wrap it up by saying we are in the nuclear age. One action of negativity could almost shut down the whole world. 2 Jews coming together, pow, bigger than a nuclear bomb. My dear friends, the power is in you, the power is in me. We can change the world for good. Let's go out there in the next 24 hours, wherever we go, if we go out or even online, hook up with somebody and do a good deed, do a mitzvah. The power changes lives in the music business today. And it changes lives that a girl who had no connection with the rabbi today is en route to starting to put up mezuzahs, and we're talking other mitzvahs to do too. God bless you all. Go out and become nuclear energy and make this world an explosive place for goodness. Good Yom Tiv, good year to you all.